In the Absolute Universe, Oliver Queen is dead. He was executed by the Justice League, who in this world are not heroes but a corrupt ruling consortium of evil billionaires. This group, or a version of it, has been controlling the world for decades, crushing resistance against them before it could take hold. They killed Ollie after discovering his plans to become a vigilante and ruin one of their own, a predatory businessman named Jubal Slade. But death was not the end. Months later, a mysterious brutal vigilante in a green hood appeared, executed Slade, and made it clear that none of the planet's corrupt elites are safe. Enter Dinah Lance, a former cop and MMA fighter. Dinah was Oliver's neighbour and ex-girlfriend before his trading app made him rich. Needing money to pay for her terminally ill father's medical bills, Dinah reluctantly accepted a job from the repulsive billionaire Hector Hammond and his security chief Malcolm Merlyn to hunt down this new killer. But this investigation got weird pretty quickly. The killer began dropping corrupt elites left and right, even hacking off Hammond's arm during a bloody ambush. Which was bad, but if you've been reading Absolute Green Lantern, you'll know that Hammond had it coming. However, the really strange thing is what came next. Inside Oliver's home, Dinah and Merlyn discovered a hidden door leading to a dead young man covered in eyeballs. Dinah's nightmares are now haunted by the realization that the Ollie she once loved had a dark, potentially Lovecraftian secret. To find the killer, Dinah started crossing suspects off her list. Up first was Mia Durden, a brilliant coder who quit Ollie's company in protest over Slade's behaviour. After a tense sparring match in a boxing ring, Mia dropped a bomb. Oliver had a secret son he had abandoned named Connor Hawke. Hoping to protect the last remaining link to her ex, Dinah tracked Connor down to an abandoned mansion, but the trap was already sprung. Connor shared some details about Mia and how she was obsessed with a mysterious superdrug called Miraclo. Before Dinah could piece together what any of this means, the green serial killer struck again, executing the mansion's new owner. When Dinah tried to intervene, an arrow blast sprayed blood directly into her eyes, temporarily blinding her. Through the haze, she could only watch in horror as Connor tried to shoot the killer, only to be struck down by a poison-tipped arrow. The killer spared Dinah's life, leaving her blind, devastated, and feeling like an absolute failure. But there's no time for Dinah to mourn. As the police arrived, Malcolm Merlyn called her with a disturbing update on their other suspect, Roy Harper. Roy's alibi of being out of the country was a lie. He's currently in Star City and was last seen digging up Oliver Queen's coffin. So Dinah tracks him down to get some answers. But before we can get to that, let's first check in to see how Hector Hammond's hunt has got on. Over the last few days, the killer had become bolder, and he is determined to get Hammond, although Hammond has taken some steps to combat this. He has militarized his bodyguards, made use of body doubles, and sets traps. But the killer is more resourceful than they give him credit for. He escapes the first trap because he had the foresight to plant explosives outside, creating an exit. However, just because he's prepared, that doesn't mean he can account for everything. In one encounter, he was cornered on a rooftop and leapt to safety below, but Dinah was waiting for him. She had him in her sights and even hit him a few times, but had to hold back after Hammond's forces got trigger happy and nearly gunned her down too. What nobody took into consideration, however, is how the public might react to this. This could have been the end for the killer, but two completely unconnected men dragged him to safety. One was clipped and the killer returned the favour by getting him out of the line of fire. Their intervention allowed the killer to get away, and when they were asked why they did it, they said he'd never done anything to harm them. In fact, from their perspective, he was the only one doing something about the people that were ruining the world. So when Dinah goes to Roy Harper and finds that he has had a custom bow made, and it's just lying around his home free for her to use on him as an advanced interrogation technique, she has questions. Although Dinah didn't need to apply too much pressure because Harper is more than happy to share what he knows. He is convinced that Oliver Queen isn't dead. I mean, his coffin was empty for a start, and he thinks that Hector Hammond and his cohorts have somehow brought him back to life, which is a pretty shocking revelation, so shocking that Dinah thinks that Harper might be off his nut on something, which is a nod towards the famous storyline from the 1970s where Roy Harper was a heroin addict. But sensing her doubts, Harper offers to show her the truth. So there are a couple of things to say about this version of Roy Harper. He is a millionaire and probably would have been a billionaire if he'd been a better trader. He notes that he is a pale imitation of Oliver Queen, harsh criticism that has been thrown around at sidekicks for decades, so it's nice to see him acknowledge that. And here, he screwed things up big time. We know from the Absolute Evil special that Oliver called him to discuss his plans, and Harper knew that it wouldn't end well. In a panic, he had his assistant scrub any connection between the two of them from the internet, which alerted Hector Hammond that something was going on. So effectively, he sold Oliver out. Unintentionally, though. Which is a shame because the two genuinely seem to be friends. They both earned their first million around the same time and faced the same difficulties that came with success. Harper even offered some advice to Ollie, and that's why the two remained friends. And that friendship is essentially what got Oliver killed. Harper has been on the run since then, moving from place to place, and he's quickly burning through his money. He tells her about his own detective work and the things he discovered. Yes, Jubal Slade had his own version of Epstein Island, but there were multiple references to another island in Hammond's files too, and it is not the same place he's checked. No, Hammond's Island is a research facility hidden beneath an airfield. He would bring wealthy clients there, make it look like they were flying off to a private retreat, when really they were going underground. And what were they doing there? Well, not what you might think given the subject matter of this book. Now, before getting to that, just a quick note. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more. I know that only 40% of you are subscribed, and that you watch an average of 4 of my videos per month, so hey, if you're enjoying this, subscribe and it will really help me out. Now, back to the comic. Those that are familiar with Green Arrow will know the significance of the island. In the mainline universe and the Arrow TV show, Oliver Queen was stranded on a remote island for a long time. It's where he honed his skills and became a better person. In essence, he was reborn. But here, the island has a more sinister purpose. Harper tells Dinah what we already know, that billionaires are very afraid of growing old and dying, and I suppose we all are to a certain extent, but they are more so than most. They've been throwing their considerable resources into researching Miraclo, which was invented by Rex Tyler, the late Reese Tyler's grandfather. Now, he mysteriously died and the Miraclo ended up in the elite's hands. And if you remember your comic book history, Rex Tyler is our man in the mainline universe. His pill gave him superpowers for an hour at a time, hence the name. You'll also likely recall how in the Absolute Evil special, Veronica Cale recounted how this universe's Justice League dealt with that generation of costumed heroes. They were either bought off, recruited, or executed. And it sounds like our man was the latter. Harper claims that Hammond and the elites have brought the dead back to life using Miraclo, a rebirth if you will, and that's what's happened to Ollie. He takes her to the lab, where we see some test subjects who have nursery-themed code names. One is a particularly flat-looking man, really just a pile of skin, who asks them to help him die. And the other is Solomon Grundy, here a towering man covered in eyeballs, and he does not look happy to see Dinah at all. For those that aren't aware, in the mainline universe, Solomon Grundy is the reanimated corpse of a gangster. He's essentially a superpowered, grumbling zombie who comes back slightly different each time he returns from the dead. One time he came back with his full mental capacity, although it didn't last long. But this Grundy that we see here seems to be in that typical brutish mold that we already know. But I'm left wondering who he is. Hopefully he's not some zombie nonce, because that would probably be a step too far. We will likely find out in the next issue. So all in all, there are some pretty major revelations in this issue, assuming Harper is correct. I did note a silhouette, presumably the serial killer, was following Dinah and Harper, so he may very well save the day. And just before wrapping up, I wanted to share the news that Absolute Green Arrow has been extended from a 6-issue miniseries to a 12-issue miniseries, much like Absolute Martian Manhunter was. So I'll hope you'll join me as I continue to cover this series in the coming months. Special thanks to my channel members, the Back Issue Brigade, who helped make these videos possible. If you want to see your name on screen and get access to some exclusive videos, including one on the Long Halloween and another on Paul Dini's Dark Knight: A True Batman story, then join the channel now. I'll be back shortly with a video about Absolute Flash number 17. Hope to see you then.